What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the BlockHash podcast. Happy to have you all here. Today, we've got another wonderful episode here with Charlie, co-founder of Bitlayer, to discuss how it's the first Bitcoin layer 2 solution built on the BitVM paradigm to scale Bitcoin without compromising its security. We're going to talk about Bitlayer today. We're going to talk about some of the things they're working on this year. We'll talk about Bitcoin Fi a little bit and the Bitcoin DeFi ecosystem that's sprouting up quite rapidly and much more. So Charlie, welcome on. It's a pleasure to have you here. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. To get things started, I'm sure people would love to learn a little bit more about yourself, Charlie, and what your background is. Everyone usually has a pretty interesting story, how they got into the Web3 world. So be curious to know what your story is and what kind of led up to co-founding Bitlayer.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I've been in space more or less almost 10 years now. I bought my first Bitcoin actually in Amsterdam, doing one of the Bitcoin Amsterdam meetup. It was quite random but a beautiful coincidence. A lot of the Bitcoin OGs were kind of bringing the FPGA Bitcoin miners to the meetup. I got a pretty fascinated by the mining and also the proof of work mechanism. I bought my first Bitcoin actually through OTC. Ethereum was kind of my first involvement. Really get a deep dive on what is distributed technology, what is blockchain, smart contract. Things in 2015, I start kind of deep dive on Ethereum, smart contract, all that. Definitely kind of think that's kind of very high potential career, and so really went all in after that. So my first a few previous involvement in the Web3 space, one of them was Polkadot. So invested in Polkadot 2017. Kind of start working, helping Polkadot ecosystem, especially Asia. I kind of brought Polkadot kind of to China, was the interpreter, translator, and building ecosystem with them quite heavily from 2018 to 2020. So DeFi summer came last cycle. Get to know like Wi-Fi, Compound, Aave, bunch of all these like blue chip DeFi folks. I was doing a lot of yield farming, talking what is DeFi, educating the space, together with a lot of my DeFi like DGen or trader friends. And joined the Polygon in 2021. That was a great journey. Last cycle, get to know Ethereum L2, DeFi, zkEVM. Obviously, last cycle, the use case wise, metaverse, NFT, gaming was very hot. So I was kind of doing a lot of things for Polygon, introducing a lot of Web2 companies, entering Web3 space, and so on. I started actually doing my own investment and along the journey since 2022. And 2023, amazing stuff happened in the space, which was called ordinals, and I got very fascinated by that, and start basically inscribing, creating assets on Bitcoin. Completely orange pill myself, based on the idea you can create assets native on Bitcoin, which is complete type proof, Bitcoin native focused, and it's actually fair mint kind of approach. And then start actually just educating space what is ordinals. Ordinals was very active in Asia. So I was one of the speakers in the Ordinal Summit in September 2023, where I met Domo and Casey, who is the key builder and the creator of Ordinals protocol and the BRC20. And really that was a pivotal moment for me to feel like, okay, with all this UTXO, good UTXO and also UTXO garbage being created on Bitcoin L1. Bitcoin L1 never designed to be this mass adoption, which is, it's very decentralized, very secure, but it's slow, right? It's pretty high fees on transactions, so on. We need to scale Bitcoin, right? So that was kind of pivotal moment for me. Feel like, okay, it's very interesting and very important to do that for the sake for the long run on a sustainability journey for Bitcoin, right? So and then we start doing deep dive on all kinds of approach, and the BVM white paper came out 1 month after the conference, and we start doing deep dive on BVM. We established the BVM research group in Asia. We established the Asia community and start talking about this interesting concept, basically using Bitcoin script to do like fraud proof kind of approach and to do verification and so on. Obviously this whole space became very active. All of those become very hot trend, right? All the list on Binance, a lot more people coming to the space in the Bitcoin. Bitcoin DeFi, Bitcoin L2, Meta Protocol all become like very active. So we started Bitlayer together with my co-founder Kevin since 2023, late 2023, pretty much. Yeah, like pretty much 6 months, 16 months in. We now a 70 people team, one of the fastest growing ecosystem. We raised 25 million. We have almost like 40 million transaction now since we launched the mainnet. We hit almost a 1 billion TVL and over 200 projects in the ecosystem now. So lots happening. Yeah, happy to share more things today.
That's awesome, man. Never in my life did I think that I was going to see DeFi on Bitcoin. It's crazy how much can happen in a very short period of time and how many different facets of this space can evolve in different ways. So I find it very fascinating that we can even do that today. Diving into BitLayer a little bit more, would love to know what your guys's maybe your core mission or your core methodology is for BitLayer, and what are maybe some of the key, I'd say, limitations today with Bitcoin. You mentioned a little bit of that earlier, with it, being expensive for transaction fees and being slower than other chains, obviously. But maybe what those things are that you guys also aim to solve.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Great question. So I think the mission of BitLayer is really trying to deliver and build this trust minimized, in the future, trust me this, right? Like the programmable layer around Bitcoin, using Bitcoin as gas fee, based on Bitcoin assets, to create this like Bitcoin DeFi, ecosystem, right? We need this, this layer two, or like this infrastructure to enable those kind of use cases. Bitcoin in the last 15 years don't really have too much use cases, right? You can only support payment, but without lightening the state channel, right? There's no very fast processing, low gas fee kind of payment solution. And outside of payment, you can't really do that much in Bitcoin layer one, right? Because due to the lack of programmability, lack of no, basically no smart contract, right? You can't really do complicated DeFi use cases with logic with the UTXO kind of system. So that's that. The challenge you mentioned, right? If you want to add any features on Bitcoin, with UTXO kind of architect, it's always very difficult and it's very slow. It's clunky. Bitcoin script, it doesn't allow a lot of the basic kind of functions, right? There's no multiply and division kind of features as a basic logic in the eclipse curve in Bitcoin, right? So there's like a lot of things you can't really do, which you wish you could do, but you can't really do that with Bitcoin L1, right? On the with a Bitcoin script. So that's kind of the challenge we want to solve by building a native Bitcoin L2 with BVM approach. So we look at the vision about a programmable layer around Bitcoin, right? We need a couple of things. One is Bitcoin trust minimized bridge, right? So in order for the Bitcoin assets bridge over from Bitcoin L1 to L2, we need that that kind of technology, not just a multi-sig, right, but actually a trust minimized bridge to enable more assets to enter this new programmable environment. The second thing is the state transition. The transaction eventually happening on L2 will be on our chain will be verified on Bitcoin block. Without that, actually, we cannot really achieve the Bitcoin security equivalent, right? Meaning, if the transaction is only settled on our own chain, then the trust assumption is we have to trust the validator sets in your side chain is secure. That's the very different compared to settle on Bitcoin with ZK proof, right? And then we trust Bitcoin block is safe, is tamper proof, is immutable, and then the proof verified on Bitcoin block is secure, is trustworthy, right? So that's a very different trust assumption, meaning we need to actually achieve in the Bitcoin finality, right? So that's the key components with BVM we are working on the Bitcoin verifier. We're kind of a couple months away from the launching the V2 mainnet. I think it's getting close. And then the third part is data availability, right? So all the data, does it actually, is actually settled on Bitcoin L1. Bitcoin L1 is actually the Bitcoin data availability layer, or we go through like the Bitcoin aligned DA layer, such as Celestia, right? If you actually the DA actually happen completely outside of Bitcoin or Bitcoin aligned DA layer, it's very different kind of security setup, right? And also value recurring system. So these are the three major important first principles. We really believe over the time we want to achieve that. Obviously, now we're getting close to V2, launching our BVN, Bitcoin BVN rollup, right, with the verification capability, to have this transaction eventually settle on Bitcoin. Yeah, we're getting close to that. But the first part, the Bitcoin trust minimized bridge with BVM approach, like one out of N trust assumption model, we are launching and already finalizing the auditing. Going to work with quite different chains on this bridge. We had an announcement last week in Denver. We're working with Base, Arbitron, Stucknet, Plume, and Sonic, a different ecosystem with our BVN trust minimized bridge. Hopefully to use that to activate more Bitcoin assets entering different yield cases across different ecosystem. Yeah, so a lot of things are work in progress. Our engineering team with 40 engineers and researchers are still hard working on this. It's our 15 months in on the BVM engineering and research. Yeah, but we're getting close to delivering the next chapter of the solution.
Yeah, I want to dive into the BitVM and the bridging a bit more because I know that's a hot topic for you guys. Can you elaborate a little bit more on some of those advantages and maybe even some like use cases that I don't know if you've seen some use cases yet or if it's too early or what you might envision could be some really good use cases for both of those.
It's a good question. I think the bridging is one of the most important feature and a product in the architecture layer among all the in the Bitcoin ecosystem. Um, we the vision is to hopefully use this trust minimized bridge to activate more Bitcoin liquidity, right? Who those liquidity has been sitting on the cold wallet, not doing anything, right? Not actually entering any programmable layer, use cases for many years. So if we need to deep before we deep dive on our BVM bridge, we want to talk about the bridging solution landscape, right? So in the last couple of years, there's a couple of bridge solution kind of being there in Ethereum and also in Bitcoin as well. We kind of categorize into three generation. So the first generation is kind of like wrapped Bitcoin, WBTC. Everybody kind of knows it's an old technology of wrapping based on multi-sig, right? Kind of approach to bridge. Basically, you need to trust a small federation of signers within the multi-sig, where each of them own different piece of the private keys on the bridge, and you need to depend on majority of the signers are honest and are going through the process of signing to make sure the bridging is safe and secure. If majority of the signers their private key get hacked and compromised by hackers, the bridge will actually be not secure. There's going to be malicious attack. Users' funds in the liquidity pool in the bridge will be hacked. So there are multiple cases in the history, including the recent one of the Bybit, right? They used the Genesis multisig and 1.5 billion worth of Ethereum get hacked. So it's a pretty serious problem. We don't believe multi-sig bridging is the ultimate solution, which will, everybody just keep using the same solution forever in the Web3 space. But WBTC is using that. We can consider as a first generation Bitcoin bridging solution, right? And then WBTC has some news recently, right? Last year, BitGo announced they want to get rid of the WBTC assets and have embraced different type of wrapped Bitcoin assets because of the reason the company behind the WBTC own multiple private keys, especially one company called Bit Global. They gotta sold the company to other company. The acquirer is actually the founder of Tron, Justin Sun. So there's a lot of concerning and controversy, meaning like a controversial figure in the space actually own multiple private keys in the WBTC. Are we actually safe? There's billions of dollars of assets sitting on WBTC with this kind of multi-sig approach mechanism. Is this actually trustworthy? Right? When people are actually using WBTC, entering all kinds of DeFi use cases in Ethereum and all that, is actually the right approach we want to take, right? So there's been quite a lot of debate on that. WBTC get by being delisted on BitGo is like a huge signal, right? So in conclusion, we need a new generation of bridging solution. So there's like an in-between solution called a TBDC and some others. This like they using like a proof of stake network, one way pegging, peg out kind of model, which is still like depend on majority honest kind of approach as like a multi-sig to make sure that the bridge is secure. So that's kind of still the same level of trust assumption. So our BVM bridge and I've together with a few other team kind of doing similar approach using Bitcoin script to do the kind of fraud proof approach. Every 2 weeks there's a challenge game. So the signers and the operator in the bridge actually can challenge when they feel like there's some transactions actually not secure. They want to initiate the challenges. And then the deposit of the Bitcoin on the bridge will be, if there's a way they find out the malicious attacks, the operator who initiate and pay the fees for the challenge game will actually get the deposit reward. So there's like a mechanism of this, trust assumption. It's still not 100% trustless, but as long as one signer in the bridging solution is honest, they want to make sure the bridge is safe. Then the bridge is secure. So the trust assumption is like we need a one honest operator in the bridge, and then we we can ensure the BTCFi bridge in this new technology setup with BTCFi is secure. So compared to the majority honest approach trust assumption, this is actually much more trust minimized, right? And then that's kind of where we want to move the Bitcoin bridging solution to the next chapter. We call this like third generation Bitcoin bridging solution. Is this like the end game forever? We kind of have different opinions, but I think currently, without a Bitcoin opcat or BIP or another software for a hard fork, this using the Bitcoin existing script to do this a big BVM approach, a bridge, is the best solution with the limitation we have so far, right? In the future, if we have opcat that get approved with another BIP, maybe we have more trustless way model. But I think this bridging solution under this framework is the best solution we can deliver, and we can offer the value to the space. Yeah, and we are working with 5 different chains I mentioned to make sure we want to have more Bitcoin assets we can activate, through our bridge to bridge over to all kinds of EVM or non-EVM environment to getting yield for all the Bitcoin holders.
Very fascinating. And I also want to delineate for people too, because you guys have like a Bitlayer V1 and V2, one more focus on the architecture side, and then the other focus on the L2 side for Bitcoin's ecosystem, right?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, Bitcoin L2 is a broad term and a definition. Obviously, there's a OG chains like Stacks, a few others also kind of claim they are the L2s. We can, if we have a broader version of the L2s of Bitcoin, some of the Bitcoin sidechains is also part of the L2, right? Using Bitcoin as gas fees, they bridge the Bitcoin assets to all kinds of use cases, especially in DeFi. Um, so our V1 mainnet we launched last year, we kicked off as a Bitcoin sidechain, and we are going to upgrade it to the V2 version, which is we with our BTCFi verifier to have the actual roll-up architect. So that's the part we want to achieve this Bitcoin finality, meaning the transaction happening on our chain, through our sequencer model, eventually will be verified through the verification mechanism, and then the verification proof, verified on Bitcoin block. That's kind of the settlement layer, right? So that's kind of how we want to achieve the Bitcoin finality. So the key implementation or impact from an economic perspective, why we want to achieve that without rather than just being just a sidechain. The key difference is if we build a sidechain compared to same as any other sidechain in the space right now. Transaction happening on sidechain, settled on sidechain. There's no fees, there's no security budget contributing back to Bitcoin layer one. If you're a miner, if no matter how many transactions happening on sidechain, there's no fees contributing back. There's no value recruiting mechanism for miners or the Bitcoiners to get any value back, right? So for the Bitcoiners, especially when we have the every 4 year halving, right? Obviously, we can see Bitcoin price going up, but for miners to actually make sure they maintain the security budget, right? They want to maintain hash rate power, make sure Bitcoin is secure and is decentralized. We need additional fees contributing back to the miner, right? I think that's a very important mechanism economically and game theory wise to make sure Bitcoin is secure, is sustainable, and obviously creating ecosystem. There's going to be fee revenue on the L2s, and actual L2 actually will contributing back, right, through the settlement. Technically speaking, the difference, as I mentioned, if it's just sidechain without Bitcoin settlement on L1, the security is different, right? If it's a sidechain, you need to make sure all the validator in that sidechain is secure. It's a very different compared to people trust the Bitcoin. Bitcoin L1, we believe it's secure. It's the most decentralized proof of work network. So any proof, any transaction verified, settled on Bitcoin block is secure, right? But a sidechain is very debatable, right? Sidechain, you can have just a small set of validator operator, right? And then the validator sets can be much smaller, much more like centralized, right? It's a different setup of trust assumption. So I think that's the goal. We want to be Bitcoin native security, achieving Bitcoin finality, and contributing fees back to Bitcoin miners. So that's kind of the solution we're launching very soon. But I think on the non-technical side, the traction we have on Bitlayer is pretty good. On the V1 mainnet, we already have around 40 million transactions, and we help our ecosystem use cases finding some all kinds of product market fit. We have done 4 seasons of ecosystem campaign, which we feature our key ecosystem projects to work with, engage with users, from all kinds of Web3 wallet, such as OKX wallet, Binance wallet. We just finished the campaign with Binance wallet, which they brought 1.2 million users from Binance wallet to tap into and have a taste about 11 of our ecosystem projects across like lending, DEXs, restaking, RWA, AI agent, and then some other things. And I think that's very important. We build an ecosystem. We are like really helpful. We try to be very helpful to our ecosystem project. Collectively, their success is our success, right? So we've been actively doing that and having a lot of growth in the last 10 months.
Absolutely. And speaking of your guys' ecosystem too, like what are some of the things, some of the dApps, applications being built on BitLayer thus far? Are you seeing things in the realm of staking or gaming and lending? Are they other DEXs? Is it architectural? What kind of things are starting to pop up?
Yeah, great question. So the best way to look, just quickly have an overview what's happening in our Bitlayer ecosystem is check out our website, bitlayer.org, in the ecosystem leaderboards. So that's kind of the playbook we kind of took, try to learn from the Ethereum and ecosystem as well. The things I did with Polygon, I learned from Blast, other kind of ecosystem. Yeah, we sorted out the top TVL, top popularity, and then top transaction project in 3 different columns, right? And we have all together over 200 projects. And from like top TVR projects, and I think Bitcoin lending, stablecoin protocol, restaking, and then some of them are pretty interesting protocols. They've been growing pretty fast. Some of them over like hundreds of millions of TVL, like Avalon Finance, Desync, Pale, and Bitfi, and some of them we've been actively supporting them with liquidity provision, go-to-market strategy, and so on. In terms of use case you mentioned, right, some are pretty unique and interesting, which is not just like lending and DEX, right, which is like very basic setup. Every single ecosystem need that. We have as well. What is unique, I think, which is not just like copy paste from Ethereum. Some very specifically uniquely designed for Bitcoin ecosystem. One is on-chain Bitcoin option protocol. It's basically like a decentralized non-KYC required like Deribit. For people who wants to predict the Bitcoin price in the next 2 hours, you can buy some put option, call option natively on chain with self custody without counterparty risks to do that. So that's a very interesting kind of product design. We're seeing some protocols and deploy on BitLayer. We're seeing like our BitLayer users having a lot of fun doing that. Yeah, we have also our kind of a self-built kind of features in our user center. A user can do all kinds of like daily tasks, check-ins, even some prediction market. Prediction market was very hard, right, with Polybag market last year. So we built something similar like that kind of feature as well in our user center. The goal is to offer all these features to let user to stick around, right? To tap into all kinds of features, have fun with it, and of course, with all this staking protocol, DeFi protocol, we want to make sure some of users can use their Bitcoin, earn some yield, right? So these are kind of the key product market fit we're seeing and we're exploring. In terms of some new use cases like AI agent, deeping, well, you also mentioned with gaming, right? Some of them are pretty interesting. We're still kind of helping them find out what is the culture or use case angle they enter in the Bitcoin ecosystem, right? The Bitcoiners wants to tap into that, right? The AI agent side, I think we're seeing some interesting possibility, like AI agent to help Bitcoiners to optimize their Bitcoin staking kind of asset management strategy, things like that. Use the AI agent to automate something like that. Deeping, there's some kind of potential deeping yield. Bitcoiners can provide liquidity to get the yield from that. So, but I think for that, it's still early stage. Some of those projects, I think, still need to take some time to really verify and have the validation of the market. We as an ecosystem, we don't build dApps ourselves, right? We support those dApps to work together with us with like go-to-market strategy, features, right? Sometimes advisory on even other things, and then more importantly, the liquidity provision, right? We support TVL on all kinds of DeFi protocols based on the risk assessments and so on. So we have like a pretty well established like a standard process how we support projects. We'll be actively working with a few accelerator and obviously some of our investors in their portfolio, to support those projects together. As I said, Bitcoin ecosystem, the builder culture is very new. A lot of those people, did that with like non-Bitcoin ecosystem, like especially in Ethereum. And a lot of those folks, right, they see the potential of Bitcoin in DeFi with like such a big market cap of Bitcoin assets and Bitcoin TVL. And the competition in Ethereum is pretty fierce, is pretty cutthroat. So they want to see the new territory, new market in Bitcoin. So we're helping and engaging a lot of those kind of builders to come over to our ecosystem.
Quick message from Galileo FX, the world's top trading bot. Galileo uses advanced algorithms and customizable strategies to enhance efficiency, reduce errors, and operate 24/7, providing a significant advantage over traditional manual trading. It's so much better, so much easier. Go to GalileoFX.com to learn how you can get started automating your trades today. Back to the episode. I want to ask you a high level question because I think this will be very interesting for the viewer to kind of get the perspective, your perspective on, and that is DeFi generally for Bitcoin. Like, what do you think that future kind of looks like? And then also, do you feel that DeFi on Bitcoin can flourish in the same way that it has in the Ethereum and Solana ecosystems, which are arguably way more designed for DeFi than Bitcoin is supposed to be, but it seems like Bitcoin DeFi is taking off all the same. So does it still have the same ceiling and trajectory, or is this something that's going to have serious limitations, or what do you see the future of it looking like?
Great question. So first of all, DeFi start from Ethereum. In 2020, Uniswap, right, is one of the first mechanism of automatic AMM model DEXs, really pushed the needle, move the needle for the market, right? Before that, there was no real DeFi use cases. DeFi, the definition is decentralized finance, right? People have the self custody without actually go to KYC, QIB, to interact all kinds of, smart contract based financial products, right? We talk about financial product in terms of trading, like DEXs, stable coins, staking, as you said, right? Lending, and many other derivatives like perp DEX, options. This goes on, right? Now we have like RWA and many other stuff going on as well. A lot of those product design already being pretty proven or battle tested in Ethereum, but with Ethereum as underlying assets, using Ethereum like Ethereum L1 or L2 as the infrastructure, paying Ethereum gas fees, right, to do that. But I think so in a way, Ethereum already proven there's a real demand, there's actual market of DeFi, right, from supply side and demand side, right. I think the product market fit is already there. It's tested. It's not like just a like a like a sci-fi concept. But as you mentioned, Bitcoin. Bitcoin in the last 15 years, due to the lack of programmability, and of course the Bitcoin as a layer one architect, right? You can't really do too much. There's not people actually too much talk about Bitcoin DeFi, right? Because the supply side, the infrastructure was not ready, right? You can't really do that. And of course, the vibe, the culture was like, because Bitcoin cannot do anything, a lot of the miners don't actually want anything because they only want to mine Bitcoin, collect the sats, right? Never, there was no real demand was being cultivating. So Ordinals was a very interesting catalyst or trigger, right? They brought a lot of the culture back in terms of builders, in terms of using Bitcoin into use cases. They people want to create all kinds of assets and derivative assets on Bitcoin network, like NFTs, right? Ordinals, and later on BRC20 runes. The more assets we created, the more people we found like, okay, what about borrow against my assets, for more stable coins and stuff, other things, right? So I think if we look at the landscape, Bitcoin is a much bigger assets. It's over 2 trillion on market cap, right? Because of ETF as well, institutions and more retail as well, right? Have been holding Bitcoin since last year. Bitcoin have been outperforming the rest of the Web3 industry, especially Ethereum, right? Unfortunately, Ethereum has been underperforming quite a lot, right, in the last 2 years. So I think there's a huge asymmetric potential. Bitcoiners wants to tap into use cases. They want to earn yield across retail and the institution. They don't want to sit. They don't want to actually sell their Bitcoin. They want to hodl in the long run, but they want to explore some yield. Um, Previously, there was no yield, right? It's all zero. You hold your Bitcoin in cold wallet, that's it. But I wouldn't necessarily agree the old user behavior is going to be the same forever in the next 10 to 20 years. There's going to be more and more people wants to use their Bitcoin for all kinds of use cases. Obviously, during the ordinal season, there was like a lot of people wants to bring the culture back. There was people talking about make Bitcoin fun again, right? That's like and on the retail side of use cases across ordinals and stuff like Bitmap and many others. But I think more bigger potential is actually on DeFi, right? Like the not just the small guys in retail, but also the whales as well. They want to tap into the Bitcoin yield, using Bitcoin to access to different yield use cases, right? And now for DeFi protocols, one of the key components of building a successful DeFi protocol is liquidity, where you can get the TVL, where you get the liquidity from, right? That's very important. Without liquidity, you can't do that much. And people kind of more and more people use on the supply or builder side realize Bitcoin assets just simply a bigger market, which is not that fully discovered yet. So a lot of the DeFi protocol has been actively trying to explore, engage the Bitcoin assets as a new type of TVL, right? So we wanted this bridging solution, we want this programmable layer and so on to do that. So that's kind of on the supply side and demand side, we see huge potential for Bitcoin DeFi to exist. Bitcoin is like how to say proof of store, a store of value. Bitcoin has been proven the digital gold, but I think more in the next chapter of Bitcoin ecosystem is like we can see actual use cases on DeFi around Bitcoin assets to create more value, right, for Bitcoin ecosystem, and those value can eventually create more and more transactions that will actually generating fees and a payback to the miners. So that will become like a positive feedback loop, as an ecosystem, as a network. Solana, many other L1s coming out, great technology. Some of them have different trust assumption. They are more centralized compared to Ethereum, as compared to Bitcoin and also Ethereum, right? There's DeFi use cases in there, but first principle wise, a lot of them DeFi use cases are similar, just built on different chains, right? But I think those use cases are, especially the ones that are already proven, like the basic ones, the ones that are not necessarily high frequent trading, can be built on Bitcoin on the L2s like Bitlayer and maybe others as well. And with Bitcoin as the gas fee, with Bitcoin as underlying assets. Yeah, we are super bullish on this trend.
Absolutely. I like to tell people all the time that Bitcoin as like a digital version of gold, a digital asset, store of value. You can look at the Bitcoin chain as like a digital gold mine in a lot of ways. Like there's a lot of liquidity there that's just completely untapped, especially when you have a token that's almost $100,000 right now. You got a lot of value on that chain that hasn't been really tapped into, and I think will flourish with DeFi. Do you see any friction points in particular for users getting into Bitcoin DeFi? And if so, is that mostly just the lack of architectural ecosystem there at the moment, or tapping into that liquidity? Is there any issue with that, or is it just a matter of time? Because the potential is there 100%. I'm just surprised more people haven't jumped on that bandwagon yet, and I'm wondering if there's just anything in the middle that's kind of creating friction.
Yeah, I think great question. It's a work in progress. It's an evolution. It's not like a one time switch on switch off kind of thing, right? Ordinals is definitely one of the very important catalysts, which educate a lot of users and builders and bring the culture back, bring the attention back. People can create all kinds of assets on Bitcoin network, right, as a derivative, which was very important. Some people had fun, trading, doing some degen stuff, right? Also, earn yield and stuff like that. Earn money, not actually yield, right? So that was like some kind of a Bitcoin meme coin trading stuff, which generate a lot of activities on Bitcoin network. But if in order to really do this like DeFi stuff, we need this programmable layer, right? So that part, infrastructure projects like us, Bitlayer, we need to deliver. We are gradually educating the community. Like so far, we have over 3 million followers on social media, daily active user over 600,000, right, on chain. There's a lot of transaction being made, right? Over 40, almost 40 million now. So there's some kind of traction there. Is this as big as such as Ethereum L1 or the L2 on Ethereum or even Solana? I would say not even close, right? It's still early stage. So that it required time on educating the user base, right? For this, there's possibility of doing things around Bitcoin, like on the L2, on these like Bitcoin DeFi use cases, you can play around. So those campaigns are important activities, or we call this like catalyst to cultivate this culture, cultivate this user behavior, right? That's first thing. It takes time. Second thing, I think just what can really speed up whole process literally is some very interesting successful use cases hit some kind of home run. No matter it's asset home run or user adoption home run, right? When people talk about gaming back in days, it was because Axie Infinity hit like so many revenue and so many user base, right? And everybody started talking about play to earn previous cycle, right? NFT was the case as well, right? And bought BAYC and also CryptoPunk, right, had a crazy momentum in terms of asset appreciation, in terms of the mindshare, and the DeFi as well, right? Without Uniswap, a few of the successful, very solid, innovative use cases, nobody would talk about DeFi, right? So those use cases, especially like, we believe in Bitcoin DeFi, like if we have one or two very successful use cases with hundreds of millions, even hundreds of thousands, even millions of users using that in daily basis, their TVL hits, let's say, a couple of billion on, dollars around TVL, right? Then we can talk about real number, big number, and get a lot of the mainstream media and also exchanges and also institution attention. Then we are talking about some real trigger, like let's say a second phase of Bitcoin ecosystem, right? We could argue ordinals, especially Audi list on Binance, right? The market cap of Audi as a BRC20 token appreciated over 1,000x was one wave of Bitcoin ecosystem, right? We can call this Bitcoin ecosystem 1.0. And now we're just getting close to cultivate this another very important rally for the Bitcoin ecosystem 2.0 with some successful use case in Bitcoin DeFi. I think that's getting close. We're trying our best to support the projects building our ecosystem to make it happen. But as you asked, it takes time. Nothing, Rome is not built within one day, right? Like the whole ecosystem takes time to build. It's probably one of the most ambitious and also a lot of hard working, like very time consuming, energy consuming to build this ecosystem to have the user base, have their solid product. Yeah, like the lot of the use cases in Bitcoin was broken on UX and UI. We're trying our best to improve that as well. I would argue that like the UX and UI on Rune's assets was not necessarily very ideal. That really stopped, oh, let's say, prevent a lot of the user transaction happen because people have to pay so much on gas fee, and it was very slow. The UX was not good, and people were complaining. And yeah, we want to improve all these, right? Like all these features, like account abstraction, very native, like very user friendly, user based on wallet, on fast transaction on throughput with smart contracts, right? And obviously Bitcoin finality on the verification. All these are very important, legit features. We need to deliver, we need to launch, we need to optimize, and we need to get more and more user to use it. It's all takes time. It's an evolution, it's a process. But I think, yeah, we are still, we have to get heads down, keep building and keep delivering.
It's fascinating, man. I imagine this side of the space will continue to evolve as people realize what is really there that's untapped with Bitcoin. And I think we're getting closer to it. You can tell in the numbers and the metrics. What's on the horizon for you guys, going into the rest of this year? Any exciting announcements or developments coming up? And then I know you guys were just at ETH Denver. How was that for you guys? Will you be at any other events or engagements as well? What's on the timeline?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, obviously we've been very active, busy on all kinds of conference. We want to get the word out, keep building the community, getting more builders, getting more community members to join, to work with us. We can find a way to support them. East Denver, I went there last year. That's how literally how I would say we started engaging all kinds of global investors, builders. We closed our seed round last year right after East Denver. That was amazing week. This week, I would say, unfortunately, due to various reasons, the crowd was smaller. One reason I would say it was because that was like literally same week, right? We had there was event in Stanford and a tech event in Stanford, and there was like a Bitcoin institution investment week in New York. So the speaker and the crowd was divided a bit, right? I wish I have a clone, right, of myself go to multiple events at the same time. Denver was great. In a way, we achieved what we want. We host our own event. We had two events. One was we were co-hosting with Magic Eden and the Dog to the Moon, the Runes community. It was pretty fun. It was definitely like Bitcoin culture, one of the most Bitcoin culture event. We met some of the OG friends and the Runes community members and so on. Tried to get adoption on retail still, right? And then the on Friday, basically that was our own event called Bitcoin Nest. We announced we first of all we invite our investors, some of the partners such as Franklin Templeton, right, one of the Bitcoin ETF issuer, and some of the VC like Bitcoin OG like Dan Hale like from Asymmetric Capital, and a few other very important builders in the ecosystem like Midas, Bitfi, Decent to talk about their journey, talk about what their perspective building Bitcoin DeFi use cases. So it was great. I think the content was great. The panel was great. We had like Bitcoin layers talk about their landscape, how they observe all kinds of architect as well. Great to have Janusz to actually talk about his perspective. We have like over 800 people sign up. We made an announcement where we use 5 different chains as I mentioned, right? Sonic, Arbitrum, Base, Stucknet, and the Plume, working with our BitVM Bitcoin trust minimized bridge. So that's great. Denver, I wish could be bigger crowd, right? Like this year. I think there was some struggle with Ethereum, right? With a lot of people was confused. What's Ethereum going right now, right? But it was good news. I would say, look at the bright side. Ethereum Foundation announced that they have 2 co-executive director joining, right? Especially Thomas. I actually personally know him. He's a very capable technical leader who was the CEO, right? I think he's still the CEO of Ethermind, one of the leading infrastructure provider in the Ethereum space. I'm still think Ethereum Foundation can become better, right? I think this is something we need, like strong leadership in the space to deliver value to the space. So I wouldn't really say we wants to be the tribalism because we're building things on Bitcoin. We gonna shit talk and criticize Ethereum. That's definitely not the stand Bitlayer team wants to hold. We actually want to provide a value when working with Ethereum people, right? So that's that. In terms of timeline in the future, we are definitely wants to engage with all kinds of institution. As I mentioned, we are backed by Franklin Templeton on the Series A. We're talking to a few other major institutions on the ETP ETF product side to issuing all kinds of Bitcoin yield bearing products, and also our big BTR token as like underlying assets for ETP. We're exploring like a single token trust product with Grayscale and a few other major well-known institutions. I think the institution Bitcoin DeFi is one of the most exciting and high potential area we need to explore. We don't want to just focus on retail, being like the degen well, the retail trading chain. It's actually quite a lot of the angle is focused on the institution to deliver value, deliver yield bearing product for them as well. So we're going to attend the Digital Asset Summit later this month in New York, and then many other conference globally this year. It's going to be a busy year, and obviously a lot of community members have been actively asking. Yeah, we're gonna soon launch our BTR token, which is our governance token. And major exchanges. Yeah, I think the time is getting ready. The traction is getting ready. We have big communities, and hopefully, the market can become better, right? We are all put a lot of attention on the upcoming crypto summit tomorrow, right, in Washington D.C. And many other friendly policies. Once we have more clarity on all these policies, I think we will have bigger traction over the time.
Absolutely. Hopefully, by the time people see this episode, the crypto summit that's tomorrow was a positive thing and didn't, completely retrace in a single day. It's been a wild year for sure in the markets, and I think it's still going to be a very good year, not just in terms of price, but also development. And I think what will eventually come out of this space, there's a lot going on globally and geopolitics that affect these markets too. So patience is key here. And where can people go to learn more about BitLayer? Website, socials? Do you guys have a community? Where can people go to kind of dive into your ecosystem?
Yeah, the best way to keep following our updates, the other news is our Twitter, called the Bitlayer Labs. That's the way to just keep track on what we're doing, all the announcement, all the news, all the partnership, everything, and also some of the thought leader piece and the content. If you want to deep dive on our technology side and some of the contribution we are making on BVM Alliance and so on, is our blog.bitlayer.org, right? Which is also bitlayer.org. Bitlayer.org is our website, right? So for the people who wants to understand what kind of ecosystem projects there, you can find easily on the website. We try to make it as much straightforward and self-explanatory as possible. um yeah, like that's kind of the best way to tap into our ecosystem on following us. We have a community in Discord, Telegram, and yeah, we do community calls pretty much every month. Another one is upcoming next week, and to talk about a lot of the announcement, a lot of the news, a lot of the insights, a lot of the observation we're looking at in the space. We have a pretty active community, and altogether almost 3 million followers across different social media already. We have different regional community as well. Pretty active community, especially in Asia. in the Chinese community, the Vietnamese community, the Korean community, Malaysian as well. On the US side, we have our US English global speaking community. Yeah, we want to expand our region into other places like Middle East, Turkey, and Latin America. We have actually investor and builders from those regions as well. So yeah, Bitlayer is very global. We are pretty well connected in Asia, but definitely we're very global driven. We want to work with people and users everywhere.
Excellent. Charlie, thank you for taking the time, man. This has been a really good episode. Learned a lot about what you guys are doing with Bitlayer, and exciting to see how you guys continue to build out all this infrastructure around Bitcoin DeFi and the different applications and solutions that come out of that. So keep up with the good work, man, and keep me updated on what you guys are doing this year. And maybe we can line on a part 2 episode somewhere midway through this year and do some updates.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to talk with you and great to share our stories and insights. Looking forward to the second episode.